as a dad that really was important for him to know that I had those skills and that I could protect myself. He wasn't too keen on like the sparring and fighting stuff, and I have to say, nor was I really. So that wasn't too much of a problem.
Hello, it's Jamie Sparling, FormABLE Podcast. Welcome back. Today I have Annie Conklin from Free Flow Kali-Silat in Vancouver, British Columbia today. And she is an instructor underneath Sifu Rick Fay as well as Guro Dan Inosanto and just a phenomenal person. And we want to come in and then talk to her a little bit about our martial arts journey. Hey, Annie.
Hey, Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Well, as we spoke about earlier, I'm a little bit loopy. Okay, I've been out in the sun all day and all that good stuff. But Annie, Kali Gal, I wanted
Yeah.
to ask your origin story. I follow you on social media and you do so many cool things.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. Yeah. Gosh, my origin story, I'd say started 1988 when I was about 8 turning 9, or maybe 1989. I don't know. I get the dates a little mixed up, but late 1980s.
Yeah.
I was a young girl, and there was a karate dojo that's opened up in my really small town where I grew up. So I grew up in a small town in southwestern Ontario, right on the southernmost tip into Lake Erie in Canada. And so there was this dojo, and my mom took me there, and we went to look at some classes, and they seemed really welcoming, and I gave it a go and really liked it. I liked the community of it. There was one other girl in the class, and that was it. And so I think I kind of looked up to her, and she was pretty inspiring and helped sort of kind of get me that motivation to keep trying and um, not be too scared of all the guys around that obviously really liked the sparring part. I took more to the katas and the forms and just the physical activity of it. It was interesting. It's a kind of physical activity you can do that is solo, but still has that community piece to it. Like a
Yeah.
lot of sports are either completely on your own or they're all team based, right? And
Mhm.
I feel like maybe it gave me a bit of both, like the best of both worlds in that sense. And, when you're younger and you go through the belts and the rankings and you improve and you get those achievements, the black belt is kind of the
Coveted.
holy grail in that experience, right? And so I worked towards that. But from moving from that small town to Toronto, Canada, I lost that specific lineage and so tried other martial arts. And then you kind of start a little bit again in terms of that ranking
Of course.
progression. But eventually I did get a black belt. That was actually in Taekwondo in 1996 and did a lot of different arts, American kickboxing, Nimpo Taijutsu, the Taekwondo. I don't think I ever really went back to karate after the initial period of that kind of starting point.
For sure.
Yeah, and then I was really lucky to meet Makoto Kabayama. He is in Toronto, and he is, I believe, a 25th generation samurai lineage and ancestry.
Wow.
Yeah. And he is I think the senior full instructor or senior representative in Canada of Larry Hartsell, the late Larry Hartsell. So through being exposed to Makoto, I started to learn JKD, and obviously those who learn JKD, certainly through the Inosano Larry Hartsell lineage and other lineages, you also get exposed to Kali and
Yeah.
FMA. And that really started, I think, really accelerated my journey in martial arts and exposed me to a whole world that I just had never known about. I wasn't one of those early martial artists that I didn't read the black belt magazines. I didn't follow, the action movies that I think a lot of young boys get into and attract them to martial arts.
Yes, I did
Yeah,
that.
yeah, fair enough. And so I feel a little bit out of it when people make those references. I'm like, oh, I have no idea. I did it like my dad was really keen that I learn self-defense skills, right? I'm his only child, I'm his daughter, and
Yeah.
as a dad, that really was important for him to know that I had those skills and that I could protect myself. He wasn't too keen on like the sparring and fighting stuff, and I have to say, nor was I really, so that wasn't too much of a problem. Yeah, so that's kind of my origin story. Then that opens up, a big journey in the FMA lineage and experience and all the seminars that you've seen me at.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, there's more to that, but
for
that's pretty
sure.
much how I got started.
For sure. And can I ask, did you see a big change in your martial arts journey? You started off at a school where there was just you and one other lady, and this seems like there are more ladies joining at our school. It's about 45% ladies. Are you seeing a change in that?
I'm seeing a change, I'd say maybe in the last 10 to 15 years
Hmm.
of maybe now the 37 years that I've been doing martial arts. So for the first sort of 20 years of my martial arts career, I was usually the only woman in a class or in a school. Or there was maybe one other, and it was a different age, so I hardly ever saw them, right? They were maybe older and more of a teenager when I was younger, or vice versa.
Hmm.
I was the teenager, and then there was a young girl. So um, it's a slow progress, but I do think it depends on the art and the instructor.
Of course.
So, something that I feel really opened my eyes and was really a novel experience was the very first time I did go to LA, and I went to the Inosanto Academy, and that was in 2002, shortly after I graduated with my bachelor's. That was the first time I had experienced a class where I wasn't the only female in the class.
Really?
Hmm. And apart from obviously that very first
Sure.
karate dojo, but yeah, I mean to see these full instructors like Amy Tucci was in those classes. She
Hmm.
came from Princeton, and she would take a couple classes and then she'd come back and forth. And I mean, she was phenomenal. And Tanya Paulson was my training partner before she was Mrs. Paulson.
That's
And
cool.
just to have that, like to have a female training partner, like my goodness, that just, yeah, blew my mind. And I truly believe it's, Guru really supports women in the arts, and
Yeah.
he really encourages their participation. He talks a lot about how Filipino culture like honored women in the past, and that there were, you know, women leaders in of tribes, and
Hmm.
just talking about that, I think really creates a different culture than the vast majority of martial arts schools and martial arts like various systems that are really masculine
Hmm.
and really male dominated, and can be really awkward sometimes. Like you're surrounded by a bunch of guys that are saying things that are really not that positive about women, and you're in their presence,
Mm.
and they don't realize like that's kind of like just not appropriate language or talk, right? Because it's locker room talk.
Yeah.
And if the teacher doesn't say anything about it or even participates in it, then that becomes accepted and normalized. And I've never seen Guru speak that way
Mm-mm.
in any way, right? So even if men think it, they're not going to say it in his presence or school, right?
Yeah.
So, and he makes a point of bringing them up to show and demonstrate, and that I haven't seen that a lot in other places, even within the FMA community. So, I really, that's what draws me to keep going back, is it's a really more healthy, non-toxic culture as a female, and there's amazing women instructors under Guru, and I think that's a testament
Yeah.
to who he is as a person.
Yeah. Did you find it to be empowering right out the gate, or were you like completely surprised, like, or a little bit of both?
Um, in what sense, Jamie? Can you give?
Just showing up to the Inosanto Academy. It's the world's
Oh,
foremost place, right?
okay,
And
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was pretty mind blowing.
yeah.
um, it was yeah, it was very eye-opening. Like the caliber of people there was just phenomenal. And I guess I'd never imagined that or even thought about it again, because I wasn't exposed to those black belt magazines with these top people. I didn't, I didn't realize that there was that kind of world that existed, right? Um, and I'd gone to just more regular, taekwondo schools or American kickboxing schools, nothing of sort of
Yes.
legendary kind of level of people, artists, martial artists, competitors, all of that. So it was certainly extremely eye-opening and yeah, very inspiring. It was like, wow, like I need to come back here. And this is just a whole new world. And yeah, it was really amazing to think about how it's possible to up level to that extent. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a long-winded way of answering that question.
That's okay. That's what we're here. I mean, we're here to talk. I still find it mind blowing when I will go back and or just see Guru even in Minneapolis and all of the people that are in the room there. The skill level is almost equal to the humility. And that I find is really, really cool. And it's not always like that. And
Yeah,
genuinely when everyone kind of in other schools sometimes the rank is the number one thing that we see, and then we don't get to know people necessarily as the people that they are. But with Guru Asano's group, it just seems like you get to meet somebody and learn all about them, and then just so happens that they were a champion somewhere, or it just so happens that they,
yeah,
you know, write for a major screen Hollywood company, or it just so happens that they where are a stunt person, and it just blows my mind
yeah.
every time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I mean, even among like Rick Faye's guys, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, just the skill level and like the community piece too as well, right? I mean, a lot of people are phenomenal and yet there isn't as much the energy isn't necessarily competitive. It's more like, okay, like how can we help each other do better and how can we help each other challenge each other without being rude about it, or not like rude, but just without super contesting, but still be like, okay, like this isn't, you got to change your stance or your position, because if I really were to go through with this motion, like I would hit you, right? But it's
Hmm.
still very cooperative.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's a lot of safety focus, which I do appreciate. Um, yeah, I mean it's incredible, and I honestly do. I feel grateful every time that I go to these seminars. I'm around people that are really inspiring and make you want to do better, and that I'm just part of it. That people know me and the very high level names. I mean it's amazing to feel like I'm friends with Jeff Amata and Tsuyoshi and
Hmm.
have banter with Daniel Lanero and his wife Marie and Anne Monteclaro, and like just to be able to like have that connection that I back my 21-year-old self in 2002 would have just never have contemplated. Just my only goal was like I just want to come back and be a student and learn and be in the presence of these amazing people, right? And now
Yeah.
I can call some of them my friends, or at least know them by name and they know me.
That's always a really cool feeling. Always
Yeah.
has such a really cool feeling, and they're all so incredibly sweet. And quite often, more often than not, there's no air of superiority that comes with them. That obviously you watch them move, or I watch them move, and I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, definitely not there. Not
Yeah.
there yet. Not there yet. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but at the same time, such genuine, happy people, and that's such a gift. It's such a gift. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
Tell us about your martial arts practice. Kali-Silat, how do you blend it? All that good stuff. Do you blend it more off the cusp with the students? Because you primarily teach privately, which I think is really, really cool. Uh, quite often when Guru would talk about, everything in the triangle, a lot of times the instructor only had two or three students, right?
Mm.
And it really helps build relationship in that, and then also helps for the instructor to focus.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in my day job, I have graduate students, and I really focus on one-to-one tuition, one-to-one mentoring, which means there's this limited capacity to have too many, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise you just get too dispersed in your energy and your focus, and it is a relationship for sure. So in terms of blending, I mean, there's my own training
Hmm.
and what I like to do when I'm trying to just make sure I maintain my skill set and hopefully get a little bit better every time.
Hmm.
And then there's what I'm teaching, which is more focused on the interest of my students. So
Yeah.
for myself, I try to make sure I cover all the arts that I'm expected to know. So I still try to go over, Jin Fan Gung Fu JKD material in my training. Um, the breadth of Kali FMA, right? All the different weaponry, all the different combinations. And then there is the empty hand component of that. And I'd say that's the component that I might bring in and blend for my private classes because my students really want to learn more of the Salat. But obviously, we were talking before that, elements of Panatukan, certainly within the MKG curriculum, there's
Hmm.
a lot of overlap and some really cool entries that Rick Fay provides in that curriculum that I'll borrow those and then we'll, tack on one of the sweeps that I've learned through the Majapahit Mafalindo mixed silat system through Guro Dan Inosanto. And then I also more regularly, especially in the last maybe 18 months, 2 years, I've really spent more of my time at a Muay Thai gym. So really just trying to regain my own fitness, my own cardio, my own strength. Because as you know, Jamie, and maybe some of your audience members know, I went through a critical illness and a lot of life transitions where my physicality and my physical strength was lost for a long time, and
Hmm.
so it was important for me to kind of set some goals around conditioning, and so I've been focusing on the Muay Thai stuff in my own practice. Obviously, there's aspects of Muay Thai that can translate also to the Silat in terms of doing Silat off of a more Muay Thai structure and entry. So in that sense, I might blend some of that in as well, or some basic drills and exercises for warm up that come from both JKD and the Muay Thai. And I don't do as much of this as maybe I should, but a little bit of
I
that.
don't think most of us do, Annie. I don't think most of us do.
Yeah, well, I mean, lots of people love the BJJ and they're really proficient in that, or they're proficient in judo or something. And that's probably my weakest link, my weakest area. But you know, and I really have to choose my partners carefully, especially when I
Yeah.
was going through some treatment. I had to be really careful physically with certain motions, but that's part of being an instructor in the MKG program is you need to know a little bit of the CSW material, a bit of that
Hmm.
wrestling, shuto, grappling material as well. Um, and thankfully, some of the holds and positions in CLAT, are a little bit familiar in terms of motions in that space as well, a little bit different, but I mean, the body moves in a certain number of ways, and you can call it different things, but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it only moves in certain ways, right? So that's where it's hard to create boundaries, I think.
Yeah. It is really hard to create boundaries, especially in a private session, right? When you see how the person moves and we're trying to like tailor, like Guru says, the TIP acronym: tailor, make, individualize, and personalize. Like we're trying to do that for that individual student. So that's, guys, it's
Yeah.
really hard not to blur the lines.
Yeah, yeah, or just even, within my own practice, like thankfully I have one or two really good training partners that they also themselves know many of those arts.
Hmm.
And so we might start in Chisao and we end up maybe doing some nice stuff, or we do some Silat flow, or we end up on the ground doing some grappling things. And then at some point I'm usually like, okay, I submit because you're much better than me and I don't know how to handle this. And then we start again. So um, it's hard to find that. I think that a lot of people do. Generally, it's more common that someone finds an art
Hmm.
and they really stick to that art and master that art, and that's a beautiful thing as well. Um, but then outside of those boundaries of that art or system, um, they don't have experience in that, and so they have, that's their limitation in a way, right? as
For
as
sure.
Bruce talks about, use no limitation as limitation. Most people have a boundary of the art that they do, and they've never gone outside that, for many reasons, right? Historically that was kind of verboten, not
Yes.
really an allowed thing to do. um but it's also easier, right? If you learn one language,
Hmm.
you can understand that language, you can speak with other people in that language, and then, to then try and learn another language, which each art is its own language in a way, right? So not many of us are multilingual in the martial arts.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I'm not. I know I'm not. And I always have like this kind of weird thing where I will say, well, this is how I pronounce it. And they'll say, well, how do I spell it? And I'll go, well, I spell it like this, meaning I don't speak Mandarin, I don't speak Cantonese, and the Filipino dialect, I don't speak that, and there are many. So this is how we tend to like classify that piece. Because I always kind of get in my head, and I never want any of my students, because I hope they go on to train with other people. I hope that they never will like go in front of someone in their culture and be like, well, I thought it was called this. Why? The white guy in
Hmm.
Wisconsin said so. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
just one of those things. Just one
yeah,
of those things.
yeah. I mean, there's the actual language. I mean, I was thinking of it more metaphorically in terms of the
Yeah. Oh,
system is like its own language, right? Like Muay Thai is its own language in a way, right? It has its own vocabulary in terms of movements, right?
mm-hmm.
Like not actual words. There is that, obviously. We don't all speak Thai, but like the physical movements are their own structure in the way that a language with words is its own
Yeah.
structure. And you think a certain way, like language dictates how you think about issues or problems. We know that from psychology and language studies. So similarly, like if you are a grappler, you will see a problem around, like say a fight or a potential fight, from the perspective of being a grappler,
Yeah.
because that's the language you speak in martial arts. That's your martial arts language. Um, but when you have many from many cultures, even if you don't actually speak the language of that culture, I mean, I don't speak Thai for sure,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it, uh, when you speak multiple languages, literally, but also figuratively from a martial arts perspective, you have more available to you in how you respond to a situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And every art is highlighted at a specific range. Not that they don't have an answer for every
Yeah,
other range, but
yeah.
that's where they go to their highlight reel in a specific range. That makes total sense. I like the way that you put that, to think of it in language. You're welcome. Yeah, that's great. One thing you spoke of earlier was you had a couple of really good training partners.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Could you speak to us a little bit about being a good training partner and what you look for in a good training partner?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, part of it is a skill level for me in some ways, like having someone who it has a certain amount of skill that can uh help me maintain my skill, but also in some
Yes.
ways challenge me a little bit, like someone who's a little bit better than me,
Mhm.
um, helps teach me, like, oh gosh, I really got to work on this area because I feel very inadequate next to you on this, right?
Yeah.
But obviously
I've been there
they're
all the
not
time.
trying to overpower or be competitive, but just having a partner that is just a little bit better than you or a fair amount better than you helps you get better. And I know Guro Dan Inosanto has talked about that sometimes in classes and in seminars, right? um when you work with others that are a little better, that helps sort of bring you up, right? It floats up your boat in a sense. So there's that element, and for me, like the breadth of arts is also important, right? Because I'm expected to stay developed and keep my skills in a range of those arts as I've talked about, right? So
Mhm.
someone who knows several or the same numbers is important for me at this stage, right? I mean, it's lovely to go to the Muay Thai gym and I train with them, but most of them have never picked up a weapon, so they can't help me do my Kali and make sure that
Mhm.
I've got my skills in this in working with sticks or knives or what have you. So to me, at this stage in my development, that's important, is at least someone who has multiple arts themselves, so we can do that blending, or we can stay in one art if we decide, okay, today let's just do, maybe let's do some Tai Chi, let's do some push hands, let's just focus on that. Or maybe we just go from far range all the way down as far as we want to go, right? Like someone who can, hey, who has that capacity and ability and skill to do that is important. And I think it's really important to have a partner that you feel safe with
Mhm.
and that you can trust. And I mean that in a couple of different ways, mostly physical, right? I mean, the any martial art is by definition going to have a high level of risk of injury.
Yeah.
And um it's very easy to be injured, even very accidentally. You have your knuckles smashed because you're, playing with sticks, and oopsies, you didn't move your hand. And in some ways, well, that, that's kind of on you. But
Mhm.
you also want to know that someone, if they do hit you by accident, they're not really gonna like break
Yeah.
your knuckle. You might get a ding and you're like, oh, that's not comfortable. But someone that you feel safe, that they're going at a level of intensity that um matches where you want to be. And maybe some people want to go really intense, but for me at this stage, certainly, like I want to avoid injuries. I have
Mhm.
enough injuries. I'm coping with injuries that I had from many, many years ago that are now coming back to life. And you're like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
um, I don't like this aging thing that Guru always talks about. I'm like, yeah, this is real. Um, and so those are pieces. And then I'd say as a female, there's an element of like safety in terms of just feeling like you're with someone who's there to train. They're not there to try to pick you up or
Mhm.
grope you. Like I've had
Yeah.
that where I've been to a seminar and someone used the opportunity of a takedown to like to feel up my breasts, right? And I'm
Oh
like, that
my
is not okay.
god. Are you
Yeah. And
serious?
no, it was really not okay. And I thankfully was at a stage where I felt like I'm not going to train with you now. Like I can't be with you. And I let a few of the male instructors know, and I said, I can't train with him, and I'm going to train with the other girl that was in the room. I said, it's not good. And he thought it was a big laughable joke. And that's important
Wow.
as a female to know that when you're training, like, yes, you're going to have accidental, the
Brushes.
hands go in places that are accidental and whatever, but you want to know that you trust that that is the case and that it's not, there's no hidden agenda.
Yeah. I'm really sorry you went through that. I
Thank
don't
you.
yeah, I've never had anybody on the show that's had that happen,
Yeah,
and
it's not the vast majority of my
no.
experience, Jamie, but it is a reality. And I for me, that's an element of the safety that I'm talking about, that kind of female male interaction. It's important to have that, I think.
I really appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. That's One thing I took is, we're back to if it's its own language, right? You need somebody that understands the language of martial arts and what your goals are. It's not somebody that's going to speak too softly, not somebody who's going to scream all the time,
Yeah,
right? But someone
yeah.
who's willing to have that conversational energy. And in regards to that last part, like being a guy, that's not happened to me, and I never thought anything of it. And so you just opened my eyes to that. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say on that. But we're not going to dwell on that. What kind of advice would you give to ladies that are starting martial arts? Okay, or we could just make it students in general, right? Uh, but especially at our school, we're 40, like I said before, 45% ladies, and you know everybody comes in with their own mindset, right? And I got to be honest, up until about 4 minutes ago, I thought I was really dialed in on the mindset part, but what is some advice you would give to beginners?
And specifically female beginners, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I'd say like the thing that comes to mind immediately, Jamie, is trust your gut, right? Like
Yeah.
women, women live in a world that like what I just explained to you doesn't just happen in a martial arts context,
Yeah.
right? And women are always, they've got spidey senses that are super heightened that men don't necessarily need to have heightened, right?
Hmm.
So if a young, it doesn't have to be young, if a female is joining a martial arts gym and she kind of gets this sort of like creepy EGBG, like, like just a weird feeling, either just in general with the space or with specific partners, to trust that. And it's really important to find a place that you feel safe in, right? And that is related to the instructor or the owner of the gym. It could be also just the physical space. It could be any number of things, but whatever it is, like if a female walks into a place or is in a class and just something doesn't feel right and she feels like her body is kind of telling her like this isn't a safe space, then to trust that, right? And equally, if you're in a place where you don't feel on alert, then
Yeah.
then that's a good sign, right?
Hmm.
That's a good sign. Then maybe that's a place that is worth going back to and spending more time in and getting to know the people, right? So I think it's instinct is everything, right?
Yeah.
And I think women need to trust that and honor that because we're sometimes taught to override it or that it's all in our head or we're making it up. And instinct is what keeps us alive.
Yeah. Well said. Sometimes I like to tell people go and train in different schools, but for me, I it'll be the instructor, not necessarily the style. It'll be the instructor. If I can connect with the instructor, then whatever it is we're doing, I feel like I'm going to get something out of, especially, you know, uh, being having experience in multiple arts, right? So I know what I'm looking for, but that experience with the instructor is so much. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the instructor sets the tone of the place, right? And they create the culture, they maintain the culture, um and that goes to also whether or not they remove someone who is behaving inappropriately, right? Or versus just ignoring it or condoning it even, right? Going back to like what we talked about earlier in our conversation around, to me,
Hmm.
what is so special about Guro Dan Inosanto and the space that he's created and the environment, the learning environment, it does go back to the instructor. And if the instructor is really all about just let's hit hard and or doesn't really care if students get injured or doesn't, makes crude crass jokes and they're very derogatory to women, like that is going to set the tone. That's going to tell all the other students what is acceptable in this space and what is not acceptable in this space. And much like in my day job, right? I run a research lab, and every lab's a little different, and it's all dictated by the PI, so the principal investigator, right? So my lab is the way it is because of how I've established the culture, the people I bring into it, how careful I am in selecting them. I've had to ask someone to leave my lab because they did some things that to me broke my trust, and I didn't want to send the signal to the rest of my group that you can break my trust and stay engaged in the lab, right? So I had to make a hard decision to
Yeah.
ask that person to leave. And many, many friends that run schools that I've spoken to, they're willing to make those hard choices and say, you know what, it matters what students I bring into this school. And if there's a student that doesn't align with the culture, the values, the vision, the experience, if they go really hard on people and I tell them to not go hard and they just won't listen, then like they've got to find another gem, right? And those are hard decisions, but you've got to make those, right?
Hmm.
Because otherwise you will lose other students, and you may lose a lot of female students if you don't create a safe space, right?
Yeah, for sure. I just, well, not recently, but I went through something where I had a student that was kind of not gelling with our culture and not gelling with the other students. And I had a conversation with somebody who runs a jujitsu school. And what
Mm.
I expected him to say, because jujitsu is also a competitive art, was like, how good are they? And he said, no, if they don't fit the culture and they don't fit whatever, that it doesn't matter how good they are. You're going to
Yeah.
lose more students and your culture is going to go down if
Hmm.
you cater to this person, no matter
Yeah.
how quickly they learn, no matter what the skill set is, no matter if you think they'll do it in competition, it's just not worth it.
No, it's not. It's not. And that's a hard decision to have to make. It's a
Yeah.
hard conversation you have to make. But that is what makes someone a leader, right? Is they've got to make those tough decisions, and they make the decisions for the benefit and health and harmony of the community, right?
Hmm.
And it can be great to have a stellar student, but if they won't cooperate, or if they want to be better than other people, or even if they know they are, a key aspect of martial arts is humility, right?
Mm.
And letting your ego go, and being open to correction and learning. And if that person's lesson is to learn to be part of the group and they refuse to do that, then I guess that's a hard lesson that they're going to have to figure out at some point in their journey. But you don't have to sacrifice the rest of your students for them to be able
Yeah.
to learn that they need to do that.
That is a fascinating point of view that was actually it's their lesson to learn too. That's absolutely fascinating. So obviously, you've been involved in martial arts 37 years, and you've learned a lot about yourself and leadership. We kind of covered that piece. Uh, what is what is martial arts taught you about resilience?
Gosh, yeah. What has it taught me about resilience? Well, it's taught me about resilience because it's allowed me to actually practice it, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that makes total sense.
So I and that and then so then the question is like, well, what's resilience, right? So resilience to me, and how I understand it, is um your your ability to make mistakes and fail at something, and and then and then do it again and maybe make some progress in that, and you make less and less failures, for
Yeah.
example, over time, and that reinforces your ability to overcome a challenge, right? And if that challenge maybe is like how to jab, or how to cross, and how to do it in a way that you don't hurt yourself, you don't miss your target, you don't miss your timing, all of those things, and you get better a little bit over time, and you do that learning in an environment that feels supportive and safe, right? So that process builds resilience.
Amen.
And I feel that my personal resilience, a large part of my resilience has come from practicing martial arts, because martial arts is a practice.
Yeah.
um there's theory behind it, but it is a practice. It's something maybe you do every day. I can't say I do it necessarily every day, but over a lifetime, it is something that maybe you do elements of different parts of your martial arts practice over and over and over again, and you do new things, right? So you get really good at the fundamentals, and then you add in a new skill set and you're like, holy tamale, I have no idea what my body's doing here. Right? And then, oh
Yeah.
gosh, I really want to learn this. And then you keep practicing and practicing, and it gets a little bit better. Maybe you don't feel like you're making much progress, but then all of a sudden you're doing it and you're teaching it and you're like, yeah, I get this now. Right? And
Mhm.
martial arts is full of those experiences that build and create that resilience.
Yeah. Thank you. I really like your take on things, Annie. I really do.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. My first teacher used to say to us, his name was Steve Fristo, and he would say, why is it that martial art is something that you learn, but every other athletic endeavor is something that you do? And I try to like to say that with like the students, especially for us, okay, at least for myself, the geek from the 90s who watched all the kung fu movies, right? Is
Okay.
like, once
Yeah.
I learn this, now I'll be set, right?
Mm.
And then you learn it, but that doesn't mean if you don't practice it and keep sharpening the blade that it's gonna be there, because it's not algebra. It's not
Yeah.
a scientific method. Well, it is a scientific method, but it has to be practiced, right?
It does. It does. I mean, to be fair, I mean, other like other forms of physical activity, even sport, professional sport, it is a bit like that as well, right? I mean, at the master level, right?
Hmm.
A master golf player has to go through that same journey of towards resilience, right? It's not easy. You can't just, pick up I wouldn't even expect to be able to pick up a golf, uh, you know, I'm going to use
Club,
the wrong
you're
terminology,
good.
like stick or whatever, and be able to swing it and expect that I'm gonna, make a hole in one, right? Like there's no way. So,
Hmm.
there's posture, there's positioning, there's, understanding your muscle movement, understanding like the intensity, how hard to go, how fast to go. I mean, and golf's just one example, right? But even running, we think, okay, we all know how to run. Sure, we all know how to run, but do we know how to run like Usain Bolt?
No.
No, right? I'm sure he had a lot of learning in his learning journey and has to keep at it to
Yeah,
maintain that skill level, right? And age becomes a big factor in how much of that skill you can retain.
yeah, yeah. You did your 10 round test I saw on social media.
I did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, I have to say that's probably one of the things that I'm really quite proud of
You should be.
in my martial arts experience and journey. So I'm very goal oriented, Jamie, which is probably not a surprise to people like who know me and being a professor and whatnot. So I find setting a goal is helpful for my training, especially physical training, because it's so easy to just, say, oh,
Yeah,
I'll go to the gym tomorrow. And I am that person. I've been there, I've done that. And so coming out of my transplant experience, I really wanted to rebuild my body and bring it back to a level that I felt like I'd had in my youth.
yeah,
And so I set myself the goal of passing this 10 round test, which is um, a test that Guru Rit Fei has created within his MKG Muay Thai system. And it's really it's an endurance test. It's bit of a, kind of mental test as well. So for your audience members that don't really know about it,
Yeah.
the idea is that you have a pad holder who ideally knows all of the different sequences within the MKG curriculum. And there's many combinations involving kicks, round kicks. There's many combinations involving elbows, and many combinations involving knees. And you have to, within each round, achieve a certain number of kicks, knees, and elbows. And your pad holder is supposed to be able to call out any number within a sequence in those three areas. And you have to just pump them out like as it's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a kind of a mental stress or a mental
Yeah.
test in a way, is you can just be able to respond on the spot with a certain sequence or technique. It's endurance because there's 10 rounds, each round is 3 minutes. And in between the 3 minute rounds of just constant pad work, like there's no break, there's no stopping. You have a minute, but the minute isn't complete rest, because as soon as you've done a round, you have to do 3 sets or 8 sets of triple kicks. So you do 3 kicks right away on one side, go to the other side, do it 8 times. And so when I actually did the test, I actually did my best timing in that. So I was able to do my 8 sets of triple kicks in 25 seconds consistently in between each of the rounds, which
Yeah.
was, yeah, initially it took me like, 35 seconds, which gave me 25 seconds rest. So I was able to do 25, kick them out, and then rested for the remainder of that minute. Um, yeah, and it was a long preparation journey. I started around the mid-February, and I got someone from the Muay Thai gym where I'm training to hold the pads for me, and I did that twice a week for an hour each time, twice a week for about, I think it was 5 months. And I started just 5 rounds, and I have to say by after the first 2 rounds, I thought, oh my God, I am going to die.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to get to 5, let alone 10. And it was grueling, man. It was grueling. And um, so I think my evolution as a martial artist and getting older, I realized like there's no way I can expect myself to pump out 10, right? So I've got to take baby steps. And
Mm-hmm.
so it started with the 5, and it took me as maybe 3-4 weeks to be able to do that and achieve that, such that by the end of those 5 rounds, I had enough gas in the tank to do another hour of pad work in class, right? So I
Yeah.
stayed after that for class. So once I felt I had that foundation, I added one more round, and I did that for another 1 or 2 weeks of two privates a week. And then I'd add another round and then do that for another 2-3 weeks. So it was incremental.
It's got to be.
And yeah, it does have to be, but sometimes we try to outpower ourselves and go straight to the finish line because we have high expectations of our output.
Oh, yeah.
Because we might still think we're 25 years old and be like, yeah, I can do
Yes.
this. So I was able to do that, and Rick Fay, bless him, he took the time to be available, and he watched through Zoom, and he was there, and he witnessed it. And yeah, it was a very proud moment that I was able to do that. And I think maybe it was interesting and inspiring for some of the members in the Muay Thai gym, like even the guy who runs the gym, John. He's like, my fighters couldn't even do this. Like, this is he's like, this is insane. Why are you doing this? I'm like, wow, I need to know I can.
Yeah. That's so important, though. Sometimes we need to know,
Yeah,
we need to know. And I think that's amazing. I did the hour club test.
you
Uh,
did. Yeah.
yes, I did
Okay.
the hour club, and I did not press on to the 10 round, but you know, we'll see. Anyway, I'm getting old, so I'll probably just pass on that one. But hey,
Well, I mean, even within the round though, I mean, like, you go at the pace that you can go. You do have to hit a certain number of them, but it's quite a reasonable number. It's like you have to do 25 in total.
hmm
And within 3 minutes, you can easily do that, right? So if you set the pace that you can manage, it's doable. I didn't, I don't think I'll ever be able to do the 5 round test because that's where your pad holder is not your friend
yes.
and they try to beat you up and really test your defense while you're also trying to achieve the goals that you're doing. And um, I have to be very careful because as you know, I've had a kidney transplant
hmm
and so I can't get hit in my gut area. And so my worry would be that my pad holder would get so engaged that they'd start teeping me and I'd be too tired to block it. And then there's a risk of injury that my doctors made clear I need to um, just not be
Avoid that
exposed to.
piece, yeah. And there's plenty of
Yeah.
things you can do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, we all have our with our stuff. It's not at all the same thing. I'm gonna have surgery on my right shoulder, and was kind of upset about it because it's gonna take me out of BJJ for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm learning how to use my feet better now, though.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
not like once again, not at all the same thing, but that's you know, uh, I guess it's not the same thing. But I had a good day with my feet the other day, Annie. That's all I'm saying. Okay, a good
That
day.
is amazing.
I
That is
felt.
amazing, my friend. So,
Uh,
you know, it doesn't have to be the same thing to still produce the same uh benefit in a way, right? So we talked
mm-hmm.
about resilience, right? And um I think a testament to resilience through the martial arts experience and the journey is that you are adaptable and that you can use this limitation, this physical surgical limitation and barrier to your full range of motion to then say, okay, what's the alternative route, right? And you have 3 other limbs. So how do you optimize those 3 other limbs and adapt to the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing to be able to go through, right? And it's an important learning experience that I think does translate to our general life, right?
Yeah,
um Adaptability, taking accepting what is, right? Just taking the situation for what it is, right?
mm-hmm.
There's things that are outside of our control, and but the skills and the experience that we bring from martial arts is, you know as cliche as it sounds from Qigong, like be like water, right? Like
Yeah,
if there's a big rock in the way, what's the route that gets around that? um so that you can just go with the flow, like your life just carries on, right? You can't just stop there.
mm,
I mean, you could, but I think most of us, when we've been in this life for so long, it's almost like that's not even
it's not an option.
not an option. It's not something you would even contemplate. It's just like, okay, so what else can I do? What can I do instead? And you found that now this is an opportunity, an initiation for you to work on your feet
Yeah.
and make your feet like ambidextrous with your hands, right? In a way. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not the right word, but make them just as good of a tool.
Yeah. Thank you, Annie. Would you like to play our speed round now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple questions for you here, okay? And we try to answer within 3 to 5 sentences, all right? And it's okay, right? If you go over, there won't be any buzzers, there won't be anything, and I promise not to do the Jeopardy music in the background. I promise.
Okay.
All right, okay. What is one training habit everyone should start tomorrow?
Start and or continue. It, I think just mobility and just living an active lifestyle, right? Just maintaining that activeness in our life, right? And especially with an emphasis around mobility.
Yeah.
Mobility is so important as we get old. So, you know, if that means like take the stairs instead of the elevator, or walk a couple blocks instead of getting in the car, like that, those little things is a habit that just makes sure that our foundation as martial artists is there, right? Because it's all about mobility, it's all about footwork. So if we can't move, then we're up Schitt's Creek, as they say in Canada.
Without a paddle.
Without
Absolutely.
a paddle.
Yeah, you're totally right. All right, number two, what is one habit that martial artists should stop immediately?
I have a couple ideas around that.
Okay.
One is going either too hard or too fast, particularly before we have the motion or technique embodied in our
Yeah.
nervous system, right? So, Guru Inosanto often talks about like go slow, right? And Rick
Hmm.
has this expression like slow is smooth, and then smooth is fast. So like we don't go slow enough at whatever level of expertise we have. And to that, related to that is ignoring pain when you've been injured and not really giving yourself the rehab you need. And some of that rehab is when you are training, go slow with the training so you don't
Yeah.
just continue to re-injure, right?
Mhm.
And some of that also relates to just skipping the basics, right? So if all you can do is your footwork, then that's what you should focus on, right? So I think we skip that. Once we get a lot of techniques and we do fancy stuff, we just want to do that stuff and we get bored with our angle one and our angle two. We get bored
Yes.
with our triangle footwork. We get bored with, the skipping and stuff. And, mastery is just someone who's done the basics very, very well over and over and over again. And if you're finding yourself bored with it, like use that as a lesson to figure out how not to be bored with it. Find the lesson in that, find the lesson in like what can I think about in this movement that's going to make it different than it was yesterday?
Yes. Find the lesson. I love that. All right, number three, what is something that beginners worry about that doesn't matter?
Um, I think perfection,
Hmm.
perfection in the technique they're learning, or the exercise that they're doing, that they want to, kind of get it from the get-go. And um a lot of what we do just takes years and years and years of practice, right? And even then we don't always get it perfect every time, right? But I
Yeah.
think beginners, like, they really feel perhaps like they focus more on just like, oh, is it like this or is it like that? Um and even teachers, sometimes they overcorrect their students because they want to tell their students absolutely every nuance to make it, the right way, whatever that is.
Hmm.
So again, I appreciate, a lot of times Guru Nasano, when he's teaching us how to be teachers, he says, don't overteach, right? Like let the student find the technique, find what works for them. And, you can make adjustments maybe to the gross motions. And then as they progress, you then start to add those nuances. But focusing too much on the nuance first before you have any of the other stuff is, I think, what trips a lot of people up.
Yes. Absolutely. And it doesn't really give us a chance to give ourselves a chance.
Yeah.
I like the way that you put that. What is one principle that applies equally to martial arts and life?
I feel like it's hard to say it in one word, but embodied presence,
Mm,
right? Like full presence,
yeah.
and really being in a space, right? Like really being in whatever it is that you're doing. Um, and that enables you to be fluid with whatever comes, right? Accepting what is, right? So
Yeah.
I'm in front of this really good fighter, and maybe we're doing a sparring thing, and it's just like I don't know what they're going to come at me with, but I need to be in this moment fully and completely.
Mm,
And I believe that translates to life. It certainly translated to my life. It was how I was able to like radically accept that my kidneys stopped working and I
hmm.
needed pretty serious treatment, life-saving treatment for almost 2 years. And um, I had no control over the outcome, right? Like if my body wasn't able to stay alive with the treatment because it's very harsh, that
Mhm.
I just had to accept that I'm going to do what I can do every day, and I'm going to try and keep the training that I can keep to the extent that I can, and I'm just going to go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
Because this is outside of my control, and accepting what is. And part of being able to do that is just being fully present in this moment and not worrying about the past, not worrying about the future, any of that.
Amen. All right. What is the hardest lesson martial arts ever taught you?
The hardest lesson, um, I guess to accept my failures, to
Mm.
accept that
Yeah.
I can't be perfect as much as I want to be.
Mhm.
Um, and part of that is to keep that white belt mentality, right? to
Yeah.
to to just come to every class with a white belt mentality, and no matter how many years I've been at it, to still appreciate that, I might not kick well today, I might not punch well today, I might screw up, and it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
um and that there's, we go through hills and valleys with our training and with our life, and it's just sort of to how do you deal with those valleys when you're in a slump. And that could be with your discipline, that could be with your motivation, which is clearly related a little bit to your discipline,
Yeah.
um, or just feeling like you just something's missing, right? So recently, actually, within the past year, I was feeling that. I was like, God, I'm just not getting this, or I'm not feeling like I'm at the level that I feel like I am at or should be at, or that I've felt in the past. And now I'm
Mhm.
feeling like I'm questioning my skill set and my level and my abilities. And yeah, that's a hard lesson to have to kind of face that
Yeah.
feeling, whether it's true or not, right? It's all perception, it's all how we feel about ourselves and our performance for ourselves, not necessarily for others, but just,
Mhm.
do I feel good in what I can do, right? And sometimes we don't feel good in what we can do. We
No.
don't, we feel like, God, like this, this really sucked today,
Yeah.
or I really sucked
I
in the last couple months. And like, why do I feel like I suck? Right.
Yes.
And so,
We all feel
I'd
that
say
way.
that, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Annie.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jamie. This was a great time to chat together. And thank you so much for your questions, and again for your invitation to spend some time and make that connection.
Yeah. Well, you are a fascinating person, and we loved having you on. And I'm sure I'll probably contact you and bother you again to come on at a later date.
Be happy to, Jamie.
All right. Thank you so much. This is Jamie Sparling, FormABLE Podcast with Annie the Kali Gal. Find her on social media, follow her, and if you are in the Vancouver, British Columbia area, hit her up for private lessons. You're going to have a great experience. We'll see you next time.